Yeah. I wanted to kind of switch gears, and I wanted to go to a tweet that you shared. Um, I hope you don't mind.
No, don't mind at all.
And this is not putting you on blast or anything.
Yeah,
This
no.
is actually
Put me on
uh
blast. I don't even mind.
no, no, no. It's actually kind of more praising and highlighting your take. I'll put it that way.
Awesome.
Here. Okay, perfect. So I love how you said this should come with a trigger warning for child abuse. Because we're talking about working. This is child abuse to me. And
Yeah.
this is from a gentleman by the name of Chris Crawford. He said, huge shout out to this kid of mine, 14 years old and has a part time job at Burger King. Not only does he work every day he can, including weekends when most are out enjoying their summer, he goes in early and stays late almost every time he works. He loves every minute of it, making his own money, saving for a car, being responsible in his decisions, becoming a respectable young man. I couldn't be more proud of him. Some of y'all lazy, grown ass people out there should take notes. Hashtag proud dad. And he has a picture of his son in his Burger King costume, looking like he should be at
The
home
costume.
trading Yu-Gi-Oh cards, but instead he's at the drive-through working his ass off in the summertime to save money for a car at 14 years old.
At
Okay,
14.
so
Yeah, this should be an indictment of on capitalism, right? This should be an indictment of capitalism. This is, here we have a child who should be able to just be a kid, right? Like just out there. He said it himself, while most of his friends are out there, having fun, playing over the summer, this kid's working, and what's he getting for that work, at Burger King, minimum wage, most likely, especially because it's a kid, they're gonna give him the lowest possible salary that they can. And then the second thing that they'll do on top of that is then use that child to try to explain away why they can't raise their minimum wage as well. Because they'll say, well, we got kids, these are jobs for kids, even though Burger King operates during the school day, during every school day. So apparently it's not really jobs for kids because somebody else has to be doing those jobs when all the kids are at school, apparently. But they'll take that and use that as an excuse. And what we see here, I mean, that is, a 14-year-old. We fought so hard, and it was really socialists and communists that fought exceptionally hard to enact child labor laws in this country, right? Because we recognize that it's abusive to force children into work at such an early age, right? And this idea that we would somehow, be praising them, I hate to use this word even in referencing children, to be honest, but like this is a part of the sort of hustle porn culture of America, right? Where we see it in our media. It gets replayed over and over in media. This idea of glorifying people for their hustle, right? Oh, they're hardworking, they have good work ethic, and they're really hardworking folks. He shows up early and he leaves late. The reality is that kid, as soon as at the drop of a dime, somebody can make a decision to fire that kid. They make one mistake, they can get rid of them. That's an extremely precarious job that he holds, and with no real, I mean, what is the what's the benefits there? You don't get to that being on your resume at
yeah.
age 14. I mean, what does that do for you in your future? Really, that's time that you could have been spending trying to develop yourself as as a human being, right? And just figure out what it is that you enjoy, what you love in life, what you have a passion for. That's what kids should be able to spend their time on, or just enjoying being a kid, right? You only get to be a kid once. Why should you have the responsibility of an adult on your shoulders? More responsibility than adults should even have on themselves. And somehow we think that it's a good thing that we're putting that responsibility on a 14-year-old child.
Yeah, and I actually made a video about a week ago pertaining to capitalism and how it basically destroys childhood. Um, at 14, the reason why I wanted to work wasn't because I just wanted a job and I wanted money. The reason why I wanted to work was because my mother was struggling and she couldn't afford a lot, to take care of us. She wasn't making a living wage. She was single parent. And so as soon as I turned 16, I got a job. And the thing is that while you have a lot of other 16-year-olds who, even if they get a job, they get to just spend their money on themselves. And, if they want to save up money for stuff, then fine. But you're congratulating a child leaving their childhood early just so that you can own the libs.
Yes.
Um, and it's stupid because here's the thing. I love how you called that hustle porn because this is especially prevalent in the black community.
Mm-hmm.
Black people, I want y'all to come to the screen really quick. I'm gonna have a discussion with y'all real quick. The reason why a lot of you feel like you have to hustle is because you don't make a living wage and your living conditions are shit. That's why you feel like you have to hustle. That's why you feel like you have to work beyond the 40 hours a week in order to make a actual living. Because if not, then your life is terrible. So
Yeah.
it's not it's not laziness as to why you're suffering. It's the system itself as the reason why you're suffering. And that's why you have to hustle on the side in order to make a living. It's not because out of laziness. If you want to call somebody lazy, call the trust fund babies lazy because they're the ones who actually got all that money and they haven't earned a dime of it. So,
Absolutely.
I was raised in the hood and look, let me tell you, you got these people who are working 40 hours a week and then they make a mixtape and they're selling it from the back of their trunk, and going to the barbershops just to be able to make some extra dollars. It's like, hold up. They shouldn't have to do that in order to make a living. Like, okay, yeah, if they're trying to become an artist and stuff like that, of course, they want to do it out on the side, but as far as being able to make a living, somebody who has a job shouldn't have to also drive for Uber just
Yeah.
to make extra money. You know what I
Teachers are
mean?
doing that. Teachers are having to do that.
Yeah. So this whole notion that um you're proud of your kid basically tossing their childhood away just so that they can have a job, you know, and part of me is like, wait, isn't that against child labor laws? I mean, he's 14. How is he working at a Burger King? And pretty much the only thing he can do back there, because there's certain things that you can't do back there, like there's certain machines you can't operate. Like even when I was 16, 17 years old, and I used to work for Chick-fil-A back then. I didn't know who they were, so I didn't.
Damn, yeah.
Yeah. Um, but I used to work for them. There were certain machines that I couldn't operate until I was 18.
Yeah.
So you have a 14-year-old, working at a fast food restaurant. Like, come on, let the 14-year-old and what is the 14 and how is the 14-year-old able to focus on school? That's my question. Like,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the wild thing is that it's these same things are reinforced even in our education system, sadly as well, where essentially our education system has now been completely designed to create obedient workers. Essentially, it's grading. Richard Wolff actually has a great article on why grading is a tool of capitalism, right? And
hmm,
this idea that we have to strive for the right grades, right? Grades are a measure of how obedient you are, essentially. That's what they've become. And so
mhm,
it's just a way, our education system has completely been developed around creating obedient workers, right? That
yeah,
so if you get A's, if you get straight A's, it means you're very obedient. You go, you do the work that you're told to do as you're told to do it. And there's no room for people that think outside the box or are more creative in that way, or may learn a different way than others, right? We then label those kids as, especially with Black and brown folks, and males as well, they tend to be labeled as having behavioral issues, simply because they don't learn in the same way that these institutions have developed. And so those kids end up falling into the school to prison pipeline, or simply being cast aside, or having their intellect diminished because they simply don't happen to learn or operate the same way that businesses prefer. And so we've completely designed even our system of grading, where Professor Wolf, he's been a professor for 50 years, and he said professors don't like grading, students don't like being graded. What if we could, all the time that is spent for teachers on grading, what if instead they could spend that time actually working one-on-one with students, being able to give them better feedback without this idea that they have to then stuff everyone into a box of A, B, C, D, F. Like, what if we simply allowed people to use that time more actually productively, and to get the right kind of more direct feedback to their students, and to help them more directly. But because the whole system is being designed, even our education systems are designed to create these obedient workers. We see this where it's like this 14-year-old could feels like it's a success to get this job at a Burger King, and to be stuck in this sort of minimum wage job, trying to gain more material things like a car that are only necessary, right? Cars are only necessary because we have such garbage public transportation systems. Like, if we really got together collectively, would we decide that we all want to have every single individual owning a gas-powered vehicle that's polluting our planet, when we could have much more efficient, free public transportation systems instead? But they will put all that pressure on a child to be striving to buy this pollution vehicle or whatever, instead of working towards developing systems of public transportation that are more efficient, and better for better for ourselves, and better for our environment, and better for our economy as well. If we weren't all wasting money becoming these individual buyers and consumers. And that's why this system has reduced us all down so much to consumers at this stage, that even this child, a 14-year-old, he's concerned about being a consumer already. He's already, his father here is reinforcing it, and saying, oh, look at my son striving to be a good consumer. And the reason they want to frame us all as consumers is because it allows them to not frame us as workers. Because if we see ourselves as workers and not as consumers, then we would recognize a sort of, when you're a consumer, well, guess what? The wealthiest people are consumers, and the poorest people are all consumers. Because if the poor people do it with debt, we rack up absurd amounts of debt in this country. Student debt, credit card debt, car debt for car loans, home debt for buying a home. So we're steeped in debt at this point, and all under the guise of being consumers, because it doesn't create a separation of employer and employee. It sees all of us as one, just all consumers. We're all consumers, instead of recognizing the real separation of labor here between employers and employees, and somehow pushing back or fighting against that. But they're already setting this 14-year-old kid up to be a nice, good, obedient consumer and a good, obedient worker.
Yeah.